Notre Dame fans, welcome back to the Irish Breakdown Podcast Game Prediction. My name is Bryan Driskell. I'm the publisher at irishbreakdown.com, joined today by our football analyst, Vince DeDario. And, Vince, we're going to do Notre Dame Syracuse now. And the question isn't really who we think is going to win. I think the question now is how bad do we think Notre Dame is going to win? I mean, look, we talked about this in our podcast, our normal breakdown of this game podcast. This is not a very good Syracuse team. Somebody said to me on a thing like, I made a comment about how Notre Dame's not losing this game, and the response was, well, Syracuse, a really bad Syracuse team beat Notre Dame in 2008. And I said, yeah, but that wasn't a very good Notre Dame team either. So different scenario. I think, Brian Kelly's proven since the post 2016 makeover that these are not games that they lose. So
right.
If you're waiting in suspense of whether or not we're going to pick Notre Dame, wait no longer. We're both picking Notre Dame. So now what we're going to do is we're going to give our score predictions.
Spoiler alert.
I know, right? Just ruined it all at the beginning.
Man.
We're going to talk about how we see the game playing out, and then we're going to give game balls. So, Vince, let's start with you. As you've been back and forth, what is your game prediction for Notre Dame versus Syracuse?
So I hate to steal a line from the great Bryan Driskell, but I'm going to –
no pay raises.
I feel like I want to give a game prediction based on what should happen, not necessarily what will happen, right? And and I know that's kind of your line, but I really feel that this game just screams that because what should happen is Notre Dame should be able to score at will. They should be able to pick the manner in which they score. Even when they bring in the backups, they should continue to score. So my prediction is 52-7.
Okay.
And I think honestly,
so you already kind of just jumped right into how you think the game's going to go out, right? Just dive right in. Okay, 52-7.
Yeah, that's my score prediction because look, again, Notre Dame should be able to score at will, and I want to see them come out of the gate strong. I want to see them come out of the gate fast. I want to see them, take some shots. And we talked about this a little bit in our preview podcast, but I agree with a lot of the stuff that we talked about back then. And so I'm going to echo it today. I just feel like Notre Dame needs to impose their will, and they need to do it in the first half. And this game should be over at halftime. And then when they start to sprinkle in the seconds and things of that nature, that's when they need to continue running the offense. I don't want to just see Drew Pine or anybody else come in just hand the ball off. I don't want to see that. I want to see them run the offense because you never know what can happen to Ian Book. So Brennan Clark needs to be able to prove that he can run the offense, and this is a perfect opportunity to do that. So
I mean, if you can't do it now,
if you can't do it against a glorified high school team, then you're not going to be able to do it against Clemson.
They're not good. I mean, they're really bad. So 52-7 is how you see this game going.
Yes.
For me, Vince, I've kind of been back and forth. For a minute, I was like, I think they may come out sloppy and those kind of things. But, I just really feel like this team is focused and motivated. And I really feel like ever since the Clemson win, I think this team realizes what's in front of it, and it's not just an ACC championship. Like, I talked to a friend who said, he was worried about maybe a little bit of not that he's worried about them losing, but, maybe they don't play as well because there's a letdown because they've clinched the ACC title. And I was like, they want to play for an ACC title. That would be phenomenal to join the ACC for a year, win the title, shut everyone up about joining the league, and then bounce. But this team has bigger aspirations, I believe.
I agree.
And at least they should. And I believe that they do. So, and I mentioned in the other podcast, I think that this game, the Wake Forest game getting canceled is going to help Notre Dame. And so I was like 34-3 and, because I remember there's some times I think when Brady Quinn was quarterback and other guys where, senior days just hasn't been a great day. But this is a really bad Syracuse team. So I finally settled on I do think it's going to be a convincing win. I do think it's going to be something along the lines of 45-9. I think maybe 45-10, excuse me. I think that Syracuse is going to get a fourth quarter touchdown. And that's about it. I think this is going to be a dominant performance. And, when Vince, this is one of the most this is one of the biggest mismatches I've ever seen statistically. I'm going to pull up the stats comparing the Notre Dame defense and the Clemson, and the Syracuse offense. These are national ranks, right? So this is the Notre Dame scoring defense against the Syracuse scoring offense. There's 127 teams in college football, right? Like, look at this, and then look at that, and then this is a little low because, they just don't force a lot of turnovers. But they turn over ball over a lot. And then you look at rush defense. This is even worse for them. And this 40 touchdowns, this is actually not as – they are higher than this. Part of that is this is based on pure numbers, and there's teams that have played 2-3 games that haven't given up, that many touchdowns. They're a top 10 to 15 rush TDs allowed if you look at them per game. And then the pass isn't much better, right? And so when you just look at what Syracuse does in the pass game and you compare it to what Notre Dame does in their pass defense, that's an area where you think, well, maybe they could have a little bit of success, but no, they're pretty terrible there too. So when you look at it, Vince, this is just an utter mismatch. And, I think that Notre Dame is going to – I'm going to save a little bit for my game ball prediction, but I think Notre Dame is going to come out offensively and be hot and roll early and put this game away early. So let's transition into that.
Okay.
Let's talk game balls. So since we make predictions off of what should happen, which is honestly, it's almost kind of like it's an easy way out, because if it doesn't happen that way, we say, well, it should have happened that way, but it didn't. So let's do a little prediction, so where we actually have to put some skin in the game, basically. And that is go with game balls. So you have to not only predict how you think the game will go, but you have to kind of now predict specifically players that you think are going to stand out. So let's begin with your game ball on offense, and then I'll give mine, and then we'll go to defense. So let's start off with your who at the end of the game is going to maybe not be given the game ball sentimentally, but who's going to earn the game ball.
Well, it's funny that you say that as the lead into where we're going here, because my answer is actually going to be the same for who I think the coaching staff would get the game ball to sentimentally, and who I think is going to get the game ball realistically. Because I think, look, you've said it before, and it bears repeating. Look, Ian Book is Brian Kelly's favorite child. And I'm sorry to his actual children, but that's just a fact. And so I think he would get the game ball sentimentally, but I think I think this game is going to be called so that Ian Book has a big game in his final game at Notre Dame Stadium. And we talked about it in our last podcast. He's going to go out undefeated at home, which is an amazing accomplishment. That's look,
no matter how average the competition has been outside of Clemson, it doesn't matter. I mean, you win all your games at home over the parts of 3 seasons. Yeah, that's impressive.
It's an accomplishment, and that's something he should be very proud of. And honestly, the coaching staff sending him out with a game plan that he should be very successful in is what I would do too. That's what I would do. I'm going to send my guy out, on the big white Charger, and he's going to be the guy going off into the sunset out of Notre Dame Stadium up the tunnel. Right. So I think that Ian Book's going to have a big game. I think he's going to throw for over 300. I think he could have 3 to 4 touchdowns, and he'll deserve the game ball when it's all said and done on the offensive side. I think he's going to have a big day.
That's where I'm going to. I kind of have jokingly about the sentimental part, because I knew that we were both going with Ian Book for the game ball. Right. Look, Brian Kelly is just – I've never seen him defend a player the way he does Ian Book. It's just we'll leave it at there.
I don't even talk about my own son.
And to the point where it's like guys that are actually having really great seasons from start to finish are getting overshadowed because of the hype always is about Ian Book. It's like, oh, he's a Heisman contender. Well, what about the first 5 games of the year? Those kind of things. But here's what the reality is now. The last 3 games, Ian Book has been outstanding. Outstanding,
no doubt.
And he has put the team on his shoulders in a couple games, and really for one full game that was against Boston College, but in some really big moments against Clemson, he did the same thing. When the game was on the line, a couple minutes left, you have to go 90 plus yards. He made some great plays.
Yeah,
played great in overtime. So he is playing hot, and I think that he is also a guy that is quarterbacks get a lot of criticism when they're the quarterback at Notre Dame. Ian Book, because he's played longer than every other quarterback that I've ever known, except maybe Brady Quinn, is getting even more criticism because it's over a period of several years. And so, Brian Kelly has defended him so much, it just makes me think, like, why would they then not build this game plan towards Ian having a big day? Number one, I think it's better for the team moving forward because I think it allows them to continue working on that pass game. Look, they know they can run the ball, right? And just coming out and running it down Syracuse's throat doesn't prove anything.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't really make you better. It doesn't, there's some things I'd want to, hey, are there some concepts that we've been wanting to work on, but we just haven't been able to get them in there? If Braden Lindsey's back, there's some things I think they should do with him to kind of get him going, some screens, some things like that. So I do think they're going to come out and build a game plan towards Ian really dominating. And I mentioned in the other podcast, I actually think it'd be cool to kind of, if they do that, and in the third quarter, maybe go down and score a touchdown and maybe come out the next series and, they're up big, 42-0 or something like that. Have them hand the ball off and then have them come off the field, kind of like what they do in basketball a lot.
Right.
Have somebody run on the field. Yeah. And I'm a Broncos fan, and the Broncos actually did this in Super Bowl 33 with John Elway. So after they had clinched the game, he was out there. I think he took a knee and then ran off, and then the backup quarterback went in there and finished the game. So you could kind of get that moment. And I think that'd be really cool for Ian Book to have that, because he is Kelly's guy. I mean, he's Kelly's guy. He's his quarterback. He's the guy he's defended. And he's the guy that's carried him the last 3 games. Other guys carried him the first 5 and last year and the year before that. But, Ian Book, to finish his career undefeated at home and then to kind of come off like that, he's had some big games at home. I think back to his first career start at home against Stanford. He was brilliant in that game. And the funny thing is, he hasn't played a lot of home games. Because you go back to 2018, he didn't play against Michigan, Ball State, and Vanderbilt, right? Which were 3 sloppy wins for Notre Dame that year. And so, and then later that year, he got hurt against Northwestern and didn't play against Florida State at home. So he hasn't had a ton of opportunities to play at home either. But he's had some big games even with limited opportunities. I think he only played 1 home game his first year as a starter.
Wow.
If I remember correctly.
Because he didn't come in, and usually the schedule's front loaded with home games. So yeah, that would make sense.
So he might have played in 2. I'm trying to think of another game from the 2018 season. I know there was another one, but he finished undefeated at home.
Right.
And had some big games and especially recently, Clemson. So I think that'd be a cool moment. I see him throwing for 300 plus yards, 3-4 touchdowns, and a lot of it in the first half, and then you come in and you do the different things. So we're both going Ian Book on offensive game balls. Let's go to defense, Vince. This is where I think we didn't actually talk about this one.
No, we didn't.
Because we just, this one, less of a storyline. So game ball for the defense, Vince.
Well, here's why my game ball is going where it's going, because number one, this team can't run the ball. And Notre Dame is one of the best teams in the nation against the rush. So that front is going to dominate the run game. Second, if Syracuse wants to be good, they've got to throw the ball. I mean, this is a quarterback-driven offense. They have to try to throw the ball. They're going to try to get the deep ball. They're going to try to get the big play against Notre Dame. And the only way to do that is to go up and over the top, which means they're going to have to sit in the pocket for a minute and try to make that happen. Well, that's where guys like Dalen Hayes, I think he's going to dominate in the run game, and I think he's going to pick up a couple sacks because I think there's going to be like a big bullseye on whatever quarterback they want to throw in there.
I don't know who their quarterback is going to be at this point in time. I mean, I feel bad for their quarterbacks.
That's what I'm saying. But whoever it is going to have a big bullseye, and number 9 is just going to be like the bull, just going right at that thing. So I just think number 9 is going to have a big day. And since it's also his last game at Notre Dame State, I could see him getting the game ball on defense.
And I think when you look at what Dalen has done at Notre Dame off the field, And not just based on what happened this summer with the social justice stuff, but you just go back to his whole career. He's always been heavily involved in the community, big time into the outreach programs. I mean, it'd be kind of cool to have him kind of have a similar moment to Ian Book, but I just don't think that they're going to think about that the way that they do about possibly doing that for Ian Book. I thought we were going to go. So you went all sentimental on me.
I did. I guess I did.
And then you also you picked the two hottest guys on the team as well.
Yes.
I mean, Jalen Hayes starting with the Georgia Tech game has really second half against Clemson. I thought Dalen was making some plays, but then overtime he makes the big sack. Georgia Tech, he had some huge plays against Georgia Tech, and then the last two games he's just been tremendous. So
on fire, yeah.
At first, however, Vince, I thought you and I were going to be saying the same thing. You started talking about wanting to throw the ball over to the top, and I thought you were going to go with Kyle Hamilton, and that's my pick.
Okay.
And I'm going for two reasons. One is practical, and the other is sort of a sentimental kind of thing, sort of. Practically, I do like you said, they're gonna throw the ball, especially if Notre Dame does what we think they're gonna do offensively, which is come out and just put points on the board early.
They're gonna have to.
They're gonna have to throw the ball, and I see Kyle Hamilton being a guy that's going to lay out some crossing routes. He's going to lay out some guys on screen plays, and I think he's going to have a pick or two. And part of that, the sentimental reason is, I guess it's sentimental. I don't know what other word to use for this one. I think he's going to be kind of ticked off about getting kicked out of the game this week.
I would be.
And I think he's going to – and he's not the kind – I mean, he's not the kind of player he's ticked off. He's going to just go Sean Taylor a few guys. That's right. Not Kyle's personality. I don't mean it like that. I'm looking more. He's going to pick off a couple balls. He's going to have a breakup or two because they're going to test him. He's going to be focused and locked in, really wanting to, show himself out. But I also think their opportunities are going to be there. And And I don't think these quarterbacks are the most accurate, or guys that get the ball out on time. And that's when you've got Kyle Hamilton in the zone. You don't want to be throwing the ball late, and I think that they will. And so I think he's going to make some plays. So I think they're going to get a defensive touchdown this game.
I think the defense could score one or two times, honestly.
Yeah.
That's how good the Notre Dame defense is versus how bad this Syracuse offense is.
And like the rest of their team, they're going to play hard. I mean, Syracuse plays hard. They battle, but they're just not good. And this is a mismatch. I mean, this is, in my opinion, the best Notre Dame defense we've seen under Brian Kelly. At least, it just is, this is a really impressive defense, and I don't see them taking a step back against Syracuse. I don't know why. Like, I always get nervous about games like this, not win or lose, but like, they're gonna play bad.
It's kind of like
the Georgia Tech game where they just didn't have that killer instinct to just really bury that team. That's because I think they were thinking about. I mean, they had the Tigers on their mind.
Sure.
That's what they were thinking about. But that's not the case anymore. I mean, you got a bye week next week. So just hang it all out. It's like you said, Dalen Hayes, Adio Gandiji, Nick McLeod, perhaps. I mean, Sean Crawford, wasn't he on the 2012 team? So, he's been on the two great defenses.
I think he's probably coaching that team.
I'm sorry. That was mean. Okay. I love Sean Crawford, and that's why I say it. He's a great kid. But, like, this is his last game at Notre Dame Stadium, most likely. So,
he could come back to get his doctorate.
Technically, he could. I don't think he will, because he was thinking about not coming back this year.
I know. I remember,
But
because he originally announced, I believe, that he wasn't coming back. And
it wasn't an announcement as much as it was a response to a question. But
right.
And I'm so glad to see him come back and
be successful.
Some wood to knock on here to make it through a full season healthy. I knocked on wood. Don't worry about it. So, I'm going Kyle Hamilton. That's what I think in game ball. So we're both on the same page for Ian Book getting the game ball for the offense because of his play. I mean, that's the thing, is we kind of joked about, how much Brian Kelly loves Ian Book, and we're being serious, but we're also just kind of having some fun with it. Vince does not actually think that he loves Ian Book more than his own children. I
think he might love them more than I love my own children.
Right. Sure. We're just having some fun with it, but I do think Ian's going to have a big game. And these are the kind of games Ian has always thrived in the past as well.
That's a good point.
So that's what's kind of funny about his last 4 games. He's actually played really well against the good defenses, Pitt, Clemson. He hasn't played very well against BC, who I think is a good team, but he hasn't played as well against the bad defenses like North Carolina and Georgia Tech. So I think this one is the one where he looks good and attacks deep and makes some plays down the field and has a big day. And then defensively, you're going Dalen Hayes. I'm going Kyle Hamilton. And I think that Dalen Hayes could end up setting up Kyle Hamilton for some big plays as well. So
sure.
I think both of those guys are going to need to finish strong. And I think the big thing for me, Vince, is my hope is that in this early in the third quarter, Dalen Hayes is out, Kyle Hamilton is out, Adi Ogundeji is out, Nick McLeod is out, Sean Crawford is out. No targeting penalties in the second half that potentially we talked about this in the other podcast.
Anybody on the top level of any of these depth charts
on the defense, get them out. I'm not as worried about the offense because, I mean, when was the last time you saw a targeting on an offensive player, which drives me nuts, by the way, because I see running backs target on the regular
all the time.
But that's a different story. So anyway, so that's kind of our prediction for Notre Dame versus Syracuse. Don't expect it to be a convincing win, or we expect it to be a convincing win. We're not concerned about it losing, and I think the big thing is just carry the momentum you have that you've gained the last few weeks, carry it into the bye week, feel really good about what you're doing. Don't have a lot of, things you need to correct from an attitude or an effort or a focus standpoint. Really finish this thing off. Limit your reps because you finish it off, go into the bye week as the number 1 seed, confident and ready to go beat what is going to be a very good, talented, and ticked off Clemson team. And as we found out the last several years, really since Dabo got this thing rolling in 2015, a ticked off Clemson is not a fun Clemson to play. But I think this is a Notre Dame team that can play with them. But we'll dive all into that next week because we're going to have 2 full weeks to talk about Notre Dame versus Clemson. But the other thing too is I think Tuesday before the Clemson game is signing day. Yes. So the early signing period. So Vince, late next week into the week after, we will have some recruiting podcasts and videos to be looking forward to as well as Notre Dame gets ready to sign. Hopefully, all of the committed players that are in the 2021 class. So thank you for joining us. Make sure you're locked into irishbreakdown.com. Check out all of our articles. We'll have all of our predictions for Texas A&M and Auburn on the site because that's a game that we feel could definitely impact Notre Dame should they lose. We have Clemson, Virginia Tech because obviously that's a big game because Clemson's got to win that one to clinch a spot in the ACC title game. They've got to win to get in. I mean, they could get some help from Miami losing one of these next 2 games, but they win and they're in. So that's a big one. Have plenty going on with some other preview stuff of the Syracuse game. Have some recruiting stuff next week, so stay locked into that. Make sure you subscribe to our Irish Breakdown channel on YouTube. And hopefully in the next week or 2, we're going to have some news. We did some signing on the dotted line today regarding our podcast, so we're excited about that, but we're going to wait to get through a couple other hurdles here. So hopefully we're going to have some news. It's not going to affect you a whole lot. It's going to affect us a lot and hopefully help us to continue to grow this thing. But to the people that listen to us on a regular, thank you guys so much. We had a great month of November on the podcast. We had a great month of November on the website. We launched our YouTube channel. So it's an exciting time to be a part of Irish Breakdown. And really the reason we do it is because of y'all. And the reason we're successful is because of y'all. So on behalf of Vince and myself, thank you all so much for being part of what we're doing. And we're just getting started. So make sure you stay with us. So good luck on Saturday to all the seniors and everybody that's playing their final games and everyone that's going to watch the game. Enjoy, be safe, and we'll talk to you again soon.